And today we're going to celebrate the 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan created by the Broward MPO. This represents a collective vision for the future of Broward County. So what are you in for this morning? Well, you will be hearing from elected officials, city planners, industry leaders, and local business and community leaders who share one common goal: a better Broward County. The topics that will be addressed are really key issues for all of us: transportation, environmental resiliency, public health, affordable housing, safety, and embracing technology. We will hear later on this morning from Jamie Christian, the Division Administrator of the Federal Highway Administration for Florida, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Our keynote speaker will be Laura Chase, President and CEO of ITS America. So as we get underway this morning, settle in, unbuckle your seatbelt, make sure your tray table is up. We're ready to roll here. A few words to welcome us to his house, this wonderful setting that we have here. Please welcome the president of the Museum of Discovery and Science here in Fort Lauderdale, Joe Cox. Joe, thanks for letting us come into your house today.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Museum of Discovery and Science. And you're here in the AutoNation IMAX Theater, Florida's largest IMAX theater. Now, our mission here at the museum is connecting people to inspiring science. So we're really proud to be hosting this summit today, where we're going to be learning about some of the really cutting-edge, innovative technology that is driving us into the future. We really value our partnership with the Broward MPO, and one of the most exciting new programs that we've launched, it's launching in the public school system this year, is Think Like a Planner, which is a program that was developed with the Broward MPO to really teach sustainable urban planning, transportation engineering to future engineers, designers, planners. You know, we've got thousands and thousands of children in our community who are going to be exposed to this new program that we've developed, and it's going to be provided free of cost to thousands of children in Broward County Public Schools. So enjoy today. Together, we are driving or taking the bus or train or an eVTOL into a really exciting future. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joe, and thanks for being such a great guest and partner and for inviting us into this wonderful theater, a 5-6-story tall theater. I got to tell you, it's hard to compete against this kind of image here for your attention, but we have a very scintillating conversation, multiple conversations and speeches and presentations coming up. So the Broward MPO is vital to the fabric of life here in Broward County. To talk a little bit more about the role of this agency and the future initiatives is the executive director of the Broward MPO, Greg Stewart. Greg, nice to see you. You were on time, in fact, early today.
Location.
Absolutely, nice to see you.
Good morning, everybody. So, I want to really quickly say a special thanks to Joe and his entire team here at the Museum of Discovery and Science. It's a great facility, and it's actually the venue that really stands out to what we're headed towards. While we talk about a 2050 plan, and that's what we're here today to actually roll out, it's actually about the future beyond that as well. Quantum computing and electrification, along with all the different technologies that are coming out for energy, are going to make the biggest differences in your lives. But I got to go back in time, because you need to know your history, because if you don't learn from it, you repeat it. So, in the past, in 1972, the precursor to the MPO, the Broward Area Planning Board, outlined a transportation plan for Broward County. It was very specific. It laid out corridors, and our implementing partners, such as the Florida Department of Transportation, Broward County, and then the 5 cities, actually built the plan that was in that 1972 document. It was later ratified in 1974 and actually laid out all the corridors that we use today, whether it's the Port Everglades Expressway, 595, the Sawgrass Expressway, existing, and I-75, which was built probably within your lifetime, that particular plan laid things out. Back then, and I had the great joy of growing up here, I-95 didn't connect. It ended in Hollywood, but the plan laid it out going all the way up to Boca Raton, and then from Boca Raton further north. Those segments of the way things were all laid out in the 72 plan. Bikeways and greenways and mass transit and light rail and heavy rail were all identified, and those things got built. So the seeds were planted back then and grew into a great forest. Today, through the 2050, we lay out that next level of planning. We are actually saying to you, this is what we see as the future. And it's not highway driven at this point. That's going to be a lot of the change that you're going to see. Monica Sapiro and her team at Broward County are going to start delivering transit projects to you through Corey and her team in a way that's going to completely change the dynamic of the way we get around Broward. But I'm remiss by not saying, there is something else about it that is amazing. And I look forward to rolling the tape. Do we go?
Warm sunshine, beaches, arts and culture, fine dining. It's all here in South Florida. It's a great place to live, work, and play. But like anywhere else, it requires planning, collaboration, and a vision for the future. That's why the Broward Metropolitan Planning Organization, with representation from Broward's 31 cities, is such an important resource, working closely with local, state, and national partners. They are the agency to plan, prioritize, and fund the delivery of diverse transportation options that can move people and goods throughout our region and more. Planning today for tomorrow is crucial.
The Broward MPO has developed the Route to 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan, which is vital for the future of Broward County. This visionary plan addresses transportation as well as resiliency, housing affordability, public health, safety, and technology. Everything is interconnected.
It is projected that by 2050, our community will be home to over 2 million people, which is a 20% increase from today. And with growth comes challenges and opportunities. That's why the Broward MPO has identified 6 funding programs in the Route to 2050 plan. Number 1, how we manage traffic is a major challenge. As many as 27 roadway projects across the county will be funded to help reduce congestion and improve safety. Timing traffic lights and adding turn lanes are some viable measures that are planned. Number 2, recognizing that transit hub projects have a positive impact on neighborhood growth, the plan includes identifying future locations. Hubs create better access to transit, which sparks new development, and homebuyers appreciate nearby access to bus, rail, and rideshare options to rely less on personal vehicles. Number 3, the MPO is working with Broward County on the Broward Safety Action Plan, which will identify the areas with the greatest needs for safety improvements. The Route to 2050 plan will help to fund these improvements. Saving lives is our number 1 priority. Number 4, flooding and extreme heat are real concerns. The MPO will conduct corridor studies to improve the resiliency of our most vulnerable roadways. Potential measures are hurricane-resistant traffic signals, more trees and shrubs, permeable road and paving materials, and more. Number 5, investing in complete streets projects, which add more pedestrian and bicycle paths, as well as traffic calming measures, are good for communities and individual health. Areas such as the Northwest neighborhoods in Pompano and the Johnson Street corridor that runs through Hollywood and Pembroke Pines are prime for road improvements. When completed, residents are likely to bike and walk more, which helps to reduce obesity and heart disease. And less cars on the road improves air quality. And lastly, number 6, technology is key to the future too. Investing in projects like electric vehicle charging stations and new roadway technologies, which include new fiber optics for smarter signaling, and a digital model of the county that can allow for better planning will improve our resiliency, reduce congestion, and improve safety.
The Route to 2050 Metropolitan Plan is the path forward to make sure we maintain the quality of life that we all want and deserve. Broward MPO is proud to put forth a plan that brings everyone together for one common goal, a better Broward County. Let's get to work. The future is so bright, and we're so excited, but we have many paths that we need to go on to get to this route to make 2050 happen. And I'm really pleased because I have a great board of directors. I have 38 board members, 31 city members, county members, as well as school board member, and the person that leads the entire thing is actually our chair, Yvette Coburn from the city of Miramar. Yvette.
Good morning, everyone. I am honored to be here today with my colleagues, our esteemed guests, and most importantly, a room full of neighbors. Even though I live in the city of Miramar, I woke up before the sun rose this morning just to get here. I consider everyone in Broward County my neighbor. As chair of the Broward MPO, it is my responsibility to bring the board together to craft one regional vision, which meets our unique challenges here. Children walking to school safely, getting to work on time, and being trapped in your home because streets are flooding are just a few of the concerns that I hear on a daily basis. These are not just worries for my city, the city of Miramar, but across the county. Our region relies on collaboration in order to plan, prioritize, and fund meaningful transportation projects to make the lives of all neighbors better where they live here in Broward County. I want to thank and acknowledge the work of our MPO board member representing Broward County 31 municipalities. Could I ask you all to please stand? Broward County government as well. The South Florida Regional Transportation Authority, and the Florida Department of Transportation District 4. We all play a part in a larger plan for Broward County. Thank you all, and thank you all for being part of our solution. Thank you.
Chair, thank you very much. Greg, thank you for your comments as well. Challenges of opportunities. Think about that. The statistic that really stuck out to me there is that 2 million residents of Broward County by 2050, a 20% population growth expectation. So imagine if you're having dinner with 4 people today, by 2050, you're going to have another seat. For all of us who are eating with 4 people today, all of us are going to have another seat. That's the draw of South Florida. That's the draw of Broward County. It is a challenge that comes from the opportunity of our community here. I'm also going to ask a few people to stand up. If you had to commute more than 30 minutes today to come here, stand up. More than 30 minutes. 30 minutes is about the American average to commute to and from work. So there you go. Take a look around. That's the challenge and the opportunity presented when you are thinking about the 2050 vision for mobility in Broward County. Let's hear from two dedicated leaders toward this vision. Monica Shapiro is the Broward County Manager, and Steve Braun is with us, partner at the Florida Department of Transportation, District 4. We'll start, Steve, with you. Come on up. Thanks for being here this morning.
Good morning, everyone. So as mentioned, Steve Braun, the District Secretary for the Florida Department of Transportation, District 4. So I actually enjoyed that commute this morning too, saw that wonderful sunrise from the eastbound express lanes on 595. Greg mentioned the vision for that project at the time, reversible lanes, innovative at the time. The theme, innovation, mobility, community, should resonate really with all of us here today. Each of you play your role in the quality of life of our communities through transportation, especially when you focus on those themes. I mentioned 595. I moved to Broward County late 80s. 595 was actually under construction at the time. And this reminded me of that today because I worked in a movie theater on State Road 84 and actually watched that construction come to fruition. That was coming to fruition of a vision, as Greg mentioned, decades in the making. And I saw that back then. Maybe that inspired me to be a civil engineer. There's folks on the Broward MPO staff that fancy me as a plan-engineer, planner and engineer. And my role as district secretary, I often wonder, my role as planning, right, looking at that vision. What will that next vision be for these transportation projects? And as an engineer, how do we, as an agency, play our role in delivering almost a $6 billion work program over the next 5 years? But every project in that work program really resonates and should resonate with our communities. Someone asked me earlier, first time here at the museum? No. I'd been here with my kids as they were growing up here in Broward County. I've seen them grow up. But what inspires me, not only in my role as district secretary, is the quality of life of everyone in our communities. But I started thinking of those kids as they've grown up, from bringing them here as toddlers to this museum. One of them just entered our workforce in South Florida. He has an hour commute as an entry-level person in our workforce. Can he sustain that commute? My other son, right, lives in walking distance from a college campus. Can he safely walk or ride his bike to that campus? And my 17-year-old daughter, who's a high school senior, a new driver, can she safely drive to school with her and her group of friends? Those are things that resonate with everyone, right? What are we doing as far as safety, mobility, getting people to and from work? My aging parents, getting them to doctor's appointments and things like that. So it's important for all of you to understand, to be inspired today, to think about innovation. What can we do for the future to improve the quality of life of those type of people? And again, play your role, influence the outcome of these long-range plans. As Greg mentioned today, a big focus is the long-range plan or the Metropolitan Transportation Plan by the Broward MPO. DOT, we have complementary plans on our strategic intermodal system, a statewide strategic highway safety plan, a statewide resiliency plan. And currently we're working on our 2055 Florida Transportation Plan. So I encourage you to get involved in those plans as well, because all these plans complement each other. And they're a big part of the partnerships that we'll see here today with Broward County, with the Federal Highway Administration, with the Broward MPO, and a lot of the local municipalities here in the audience. So I encourage you to continue those partnerships, play your role in delivering these transportation improvements. I'm inspired here today also looking down the river and seeing the potential here of a vibrant downtown and the role we're playing in partnership with Broward County on the planning phase and ultimately the project development and implementation on Broward Commuter Rail. That project should be a game changer for this region. So I appreciate those partnerships. I appreciate the partnerships with the local municipalities involved in all our projects. And again, I encourage you in the audience to get involved. I'm not sure if we asked the students here today to stand up, but I want to commend the students here today as well. It's important to get people interested in these STEM programs, looking for the future of transportation professionals, engineers, planners, biologists that can help deliver these projects in the future. So again, I appreciate the opportunity and all the partnerships we have here with the respective agencies involved. Thank you very much.
Thank Thank you, Steve. Steve spoke about involvement, inspiration, and influence. I'm sure all of us have been sitting in traffic thinking, why is it this way? Why does it have to be this way? Now's the time for you to think about how could it change? How might we improve upon that using innovation, technology, and the tools that we have? This is that moment for you to get involved and to be inspired and influential. Monica Sapiro is with us. Monica is the Broward County Manager here in our host county. Monica, thanks for being here and taking time out of your morning. Appreciate it.
Good morning, and now I get to follow a really great radio voice. So I wanted to, first of all, thank you for having the county here today as part of this morning. It is really important that we share our partnership, not just at these types of events, but every single day. I've got my transportation director here, Corey Cuff-Lahner. Again, I hope every single municipality has had a chance to meet with her. We are on a trajectory like none other. We have so many exciting projects, and the Primo plan, coupled with our surtax, is going to help bring transformational change to this community. We have been working diligently and in close step partnership with the MPO and with every single one of our municipalities. I personally am engaged, and I welcome conversation about projects at the municipal level, the county level, and throughout all of our departments. We have a lot of touch points. Now, Steve Braun, who just spoke, we speak all the time. Our teams talk all the time. Greg Stewart and his team, we are engaged on a daily basis on many, many projects and efforts. And the MTP is not just an MPO plan. It is our community plan. And we also at the county work with Greg and his team to make sure that we are fully integrated in our vision and our plans so that we're not at cross purposes on anything, because the worst thing we could do is go in with a project and then come back and tear it up to do another project. So we make sure that the coordination is existent and that we really work towards a common vision for our community. Now, Steve mentioned a small project you may be aware of, the Broward Commuter Rail South. I want to take this moment to give you some nugget of information that many of you probably don't know yet. So last week, Broward County was honored to have a visit by a couple of members of Congress, as well as the Regional Secretary for FTA, Dr. Taylor. While she was here on that visit, she got a chance to go throughout Broward County and see firsthand some of these major initiatives that we're looking at to accomplish, these BHAGs, as I call them, the big, hairy, audacious goals. Well, this particular BHAG, we got some really great news. So while she was here, before she left, well in advance of what we expected, Broward County received our FONSI, which is not, the FONSI you may think of when I say the word, but it's the finding of no significant impact for our NEPA review for Broward Commuter Rail South. That is huge. And I want to thank, Corey and her team, amazing team, because, and of course, all of our partners in this process, because it was a collective effort to make sure that this project had its best foot forward, and the federal government, which, government always, takes a little bit of time. I know all of you can attest to that. We wish we could be quicker and more nimble, but we have processes to follow. But the federal government, to give us that FONSI, is such an amazing and huge accomplishment and in advance of what we thought. So with that opens up the next levels of discussions and really how we can move forward to really make a difference. The surtax, I'll just take one more minute to share that one of the exciting projects that I also personally want to see to fruition, and it's on the street now, is the initial stages for our first phase of rail, light rail, and that is the connector project. And I just saw Joe Morris. I didn't even know you were here. My port director is in here as well. I'm sure there's other great county employees, and I know I've got at least a few county commissioners here as well. And with the vision that our county commission has and the ability to work collaboratively with all the municipalities. That is what makes these major projects and initiatives really have the ability to come to fruition. But that light rail connector is going to be a game changer as well. That's another major initiative that the surtax is going to help bring to fruition. So with all of your support, I want to thank you for making Broward County truly the best place to live, learn, work, and play. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Monica, and congratulations on the Fonzie recognition. Sometimes my kids say, Dad, what do you do for a living? How do you make news? You just, I think, heard news being made right there with Monica announcing the Fonzie recognition from the federal government. Speaking of the federal government, obviously transportation, mobility, innovation stretches well across our boundaries, and we're excited to have our featured guest speaker today. It is Jamie Christian. He is the Division Administrator for the Federal Highway Administration for Florida, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. He has 32 years of experience in the transportation industry. He was appointed as the Federal Highway Administration Division Administrator for Florida, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands back in 2013. And in that role, he oversees a $2.6 billion federal aid program. He leads a multidisciplinary staff, works with state and local partners to maximize the use of those federal aid dollars in providing transportation solutions. He has held a number of leadership positions, including serving as the Federal Highway Administrator, Division Administrator in Utah, where the topography is a little bit different than here in South Florida, I think. He is a member of the U.S. Department of Transportation team supporting the White House Working Group on Puerto Rico. And in 2017, he served in Washington, D.C. on the United States Department of Transportation team developing the President's infrastructure plan. Please welcome to Broward County, Jamie Christian. Jamie, welcome.
Well, thank you for that warm welcome, and it is such an honor to be here as part of this amazing event, really. I'll go back to our previous speaker, Dr. Taylor, and we work very closely together. She's with Regional Administrator with the Federal Transit Administration, you just heard, and I am located here in Tallahassee in Florida. But we work very closely together on a lot of our projects because we both cover, she covers many states in the South, but including Florida, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. So a lot of times federal government admittedly has its challenges, but here in Florida you're covered between transit and highways because we have an excellent working relationship in delivering these projects. So we right now are in the middle of the largest federal transportation bill in U.S. history. Back in November of 22, the President signed, Congress passed the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which was a $1.2 trillion federal transportation package that included a lot of aspects of transportation. 25% of that will come through the federal, has been and will come through the Federal Highway Administration. So we're very excited, and we've been working very hard over these last couple of years to stand up new programs, get grant agreements signed so we can get a lot of these projects delivered. And hearing all the exciting things that are going on here in Broward County it's just fantastic to be one of the partners that are helping all these projects happen whenever federal funds are involved. So as it relates to planning, we think about all the federal rules and regulations, but the core foundation of the federal aid program is locally driven projects and priorities. When federal funds are involved, as we all know, we have to meet a lot of rules and regulations, but it is a locally driven program and priorities. So in that way, it serves the local community. So one thing that I want to touch on, just 3 areas right now that we're focused on. That's safety, innovation, and equity, transportation equity. And we talk about the future of transportation. We talk about all these exciting projects that we've heard about this morning. That doesn't just show up. A lot of us, general public drive and we see these projects and we think, oh, they're starting that project. But as we all know, those projects have been in the plans for 15, 20 years. We have a program at the Federal Highway Administration called our Everyday Counts program. And that is a program where we go out and we find out innovative solutions that are happening across the United States. and we put time and energy into that to showcase those around so we can develop that innovation much faster in order for other communities to take advantage of these opportunities. So where that came about was our then administrator, Victor Mendez. He was being sworn in front of the Senate, and they asked him how long it takes a transportation project to go from planning to construction. And as we all know, it's 15 to 20 years. And I think when people hear that, it's like, wow, that's a long time. So there was an effort, and now it's codified that we go out and try to speed up this process so we can get these projects to fruition much more quickly. So that's an exciting thing that we're working on. So I want to touch on safety because that is our number one priority, and I think if you talk to most transportation organizations, you're going to hear the same thing. Safety is the number one priority. The trends have been coming down, but we still have 40,000 deaths on our roadways across the U.S., and that's, I think, to anyone, that's unacceptable. So as we're planning for the future, what I hear, especially here in South Florida, is pedestrians and bicyclists. It's in getting people out of their cars, reducing that congestion, which is a great goal. 27% of the fatalities here in Florida are still our pedestrians and bicyclists. So there's a lot of work to do to make sure that we keep our pedestrian, bicyclists, and what we call our vulnerable road users safe. And that just, again, that just doesn't happen. That takes planning, the local community, and your efforts in making sure that we're providing these facilities that people want, but we're also providing that in a safe manner. One of the new programs that we have with our bill program, our current federal transportation program, is called Safe Routes for All. And this is a very unique program because it is targeted directly to local agencies. Traditionally, our federal highway funding program has been a formula program given directly to state DOTs, where this is a new program where it's state DOTs are not even allowed to use this money. It goes directly to local agencies to look at safety plans and implement these safety plans in the local communities. This is a big deal. This is very transformative. This puts money into the hands of local governments across the state. So there's a concerted effort to look at safety plans. So over these last 2 years, we have issued 78 grants to the tune of $117 million specifically for these safety plans to both plan and to implement safety corridors across the state of Florida. So that's very exciting, and that's going to be very transformative in the years to come. So the one other thing I want to mention about safety is we promote proven safety countermeasures. And the reason we do that is because as we're developing plans, as we're looking into the future, the biggest barrier that we see on implementing new technologies, new safety features is the fear of the unknown. And I get it, you know, to implement, put something out in the roadway that you haven't tried before, that your community's not familiar with, there's a certain amount of hesitation there. So we work very hard in putting resources and information together for these proven counter safety measures so people feel more comfortable implementing these things. So just examples of these are like roundabouts. I think we're getting more and more comfortable with roundabouts, but there are still a lot of communities that are hesitant to put them in because of the unknown. Roundabouts save lives. There are actually more number of crashes at roundabouts, but the severity of these crashes are much less. So your fatalities and your serious injuries are a lot less than at traditional intersections. Lighting is another big deal. Fatalities are 3 times higher at night than they are during the day. And so we're putting a lot of resources into lighting. Your partner, FDOT, and the state of Florida has done some tremendous advances in highway lighting. And again, I think that's one area that people just think, oh, okay, the street's lit up. But with the technology advances and the data that we have now for lighting, we're going to see a transformative shift in different lighting scenarios that we're going to significantly increase the safety of our roadways, particularly for our pedestrian and bicyclists. Innovation. I just want to mention one thing about innovation. We have some exciting programs that we're trying to seed that innovation, go out and look for those great ideas. The US DOT just issued $60 million grants, 3 $20 million grants across the United States in Utah, Texas, and Arizona. We call it V2X, Vehicles Connected to Everything. We have a tremendous amount of data. State DOTs and local transportation agencies, the amount of data that is collected through traffic signals, through other means is really incredible. And we're trying to harness that data and use that in order to look for better solutions as we try to improve safety and try to reduce congestion. So these 3 pilots are going to, over the next number of years, are going to provide us that information. The pilot for that was right here in Florida. The Tampa-Hillsborough Expressway received a grant a number of years ago to look at preventative crash measures with their users and pedestrians, and that proved very successful, and we used a lot of that data to issue these other grants, so it's exciting times. And finally, I want to talk about equity, and as I look at the Broward County plan, work with my partners, I'm really happy that transportation equity is such a focus in these plans. We've traditionally looked at roads as being highway, or cars and vehicles, and that clearly focus has shifted. So we want to make sure that these plans include transportation solutions for all users, especially our vulnerable users, and then all of our communities too. So all the communities in this area have access to good transportation solutions. As part of my job, I have had the pleasure of being involved in a couple, to your neighbors to the north and your neighbors to the south. Crosstown Parkway was opened to the north here a number of years ago. And again, being part of that was fantastic, and seeing how the community came together. That was another project that had been in the plans for decades. I'm also very much involved in the I-395 bridge project with your neighbors to the south, and that's such an incredible project. But the City of Miami received a Reconnecting Communities grants for the underdecking part of that project that's going to completely open that space up and provide such a gem for that community. And it's just fantastic to be a part of that. But again, that project, when you talk to the local people and you go down there, it's been in the plan for years and years and years. And here we are experiencing a transportation facility that decades ago bifurcated that community, and now it's just going to open up all kinds of new possibilities. So that's part of what makes my job exciting, to be part of my local partners. So it's been a pleasure to be a part of this group this morning, and it certainly is my pleasure here to introduce our keynote speaker, Laura Chase, who will offer insights into the future transportation technologies and case uses throughout the United States. Appointed to her role as President and CEO of ITS America in August 2021, Laura is a leading advocate of advancing intelligent transportation technologies across the U.S. to save lives and reduce crashes on roadways, reduce congestion, minimize transportation's carbon footprint, and provide seamless mobility and choices. Laura serves on the U.S. DOT's Transforming Transportation Advisory Committee, and she also serves as a member of the Electric Vehicle Working Group formed by the Joint Office of Energy and Transportation. So let's give a warm welcome to Ms. Laura Chase.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm going to cue my slides so we can go to the first slide, please. So telling the story of transformative technologies. You've heard a lot this morning that actually sets this presentation up very, very well, so I appreciate that. It's a pleasure to be here in Florida. I want to first thank Greg Stewart for inviting me here today, and it's really a privilege to speak with all of you who are spearheading the evolution of transportation here in Broward County. Next slide, please. So ITS America, which is what we call ourselves to shorten our long name, was founded in 1991 as an advisor to the US DOT on emerging technologies. Now at that time, emerging ITS technologies were really highway-based solutions to interact with vehicles to really reduce congestion and improve safety on our nation's highways. Since that time, we have turned ourselves into a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We still work incredibly closely with our US DOT partners on a number of initiatives. And we are the premier national organization advocating for the integration of technology and innovation to deliver a safer, greener, smarter future for all. That is our mission, that is our vision, and that is what all of our work ties back to that overall vision. We are a little bit unique in that we represent the public sector, the private sector, and research and academia. So if you think of innovation and how innovation flourishes, usually people will talk about the three legs of the stool, which is government, industry, and research and academia. That's exactly what we have. Those are the factions that come together in ITS America. So on the public sector side, we have state departments of transportation, MPOs, city departments of transportation, and transit agencies. On the private sector side, we have automotive manufacturers, tier 1 suppliers, technology companies, traffic management companies, engineering firms, startups, a really wide variety of leading industry players. And then, of course, on research and academic side, we have a lot of the leading transportation research institutes in the United States and higher education institutions that are advancing the development of innovative technologies in our space. And all of these stakeholders come together around ITS America to advance the research and the safe, responsible deployment of these technologies that can truly deliver safer roads, better, more efficient mobility for people and goods, and increase access to mobility for people around the country. And then finally, of course, reduce our climate impact in transportation. Next slide, please. Okay, so really quickly, show of hands, does anybody know, next slide. Does anyone know what this picture is? You can raise your hand if you do. So this is an electromagnetic traffic signal controller that is on the streets of Baltimore today. This is from the 1940s, and it was taken by my senior staffer last August in Baltimore as he walked out of an FAA symposium on advanced air mobility, where the conversation was about how we're going to have, AAM in 2 years, we're going to be flying, and he walked out, he crossed the street, and he took this picture. Because on the one hand, we have all of this incredible technology and innovation that is happening. It truly is happening. On the other hand, we have decades-old infrastructure that we need, and we need to marry the two, right? So we actually really need to tell this story of the existing infrastructure we have and how new technologies and older systems can be implemented simultaneously. Next slide, please. So we are at this transformational moment, a pivotal moment, where we must caretake existing infrastructure solutions and make wise choices for practical solutions that set us up for the future. It's a story of coexisting while also moving to a technology-oriented future, a digitally enabled future. Sometimes we expect new technologies to be the savior of decades-old infrastructure, when instead the reality is that old and new need to work together in parallel as we make forward and make this transition, as we say it, this transition from analog to digital systems. Now is our chance to tell that story of innovation, preparation, coordination, and deployment. Next slide, please. So what is our story? It's about creating a better future. So the slide says reducing fatalities and life-altering injuries. Our goal is actually 0 deaths. Reducing climate impact, building more resilient infrastructure, particularly here in South Florida. Resilient infrastructure is key, and that's what we need to be planning for now for decades to come. Increasing mobility access and expanding choice. We heard a lot about that this morning. Being able to have those mobility options to get where you need to go, to actually live your life and do all the things that come with living a thriving life. This is what, and building a technology-inclined workforce. This is what technology is helping us do. And we can talk about the challenges of meeting these goals because there are significant challenges, but we also need to show our wins along the way. We are seeing successes from incorporating advanced technologies to help us meet these goals. But we do need to better understand our audience. We need to better understand who needs to hear the story of why these technologies are important and how they can be deployed most effectively. So ITS America, we actually created a technology use case library. It's an online resource, and I have a QR code at the end of this presentation for everybody, but to help tell that story And what we did was we went to our members. So we went to, Florida DOT and other members that you would know, and private sector members, Beep and others who are doing this work, Microsoft and Google and lots of companies that you would know and probably companies that you may not know, and public sector members. And we created these very simple 2-page use cases that talked about what was the problem, how did you address it, what was the technology solution, and what were the outcomes. Because at the end of the day, even though I talk a lot about the technology is a tool and an enabler. The real star of the show is the outcomes that we deliver to people. So I'm going to talk about some of these use cases today. Next slide, okay, telling the story of safety. So the status quo approach to safety is simply not working. ITS America was founded on the promise of nascent technologies in the early 1990s, as I mentioned. At that time, there was really a hope that these technologies could significantly improve safety, and eliminating deaths still remains our North Star, because we know that a lot of the technology solutions that we have today and new ones that are going to be developed that we don't even know about are going to help us get there. It's a possibility that can become a reality with the help of technologies. But we have to be willing to invest, and as someone mentioned, willing to take that risk. So how many of you, next slide, please. How many of you say this to your children? I'm the mother of 3, 2 teenage drivers, and I say this all the time. And you gotta think about, why do you say it? You say it because you aren't sure that they're going to arrive safely. Well, I'm personally sick of saying it. So that's why I use my platform and my role to actually try to effectuate significant change, not incremental change, but significant change, so we can drive down the deaths that we see on our roadways. In my own neighborhood, I live in Bethesda, Maryland. In my own neighborhood, 2 teenage cyclists have been killed in the past 3 years on a single roadway. A school-aged child, elementary school-aged child, was killed at his own bus stop, waiting with his father for the school bus. We have technologies today that can prevent these tragedies, and these are just the ones that made the headlines, right? We all know there's many more serious injuries, there's many more near misses that we don't even ever hear about. Next slide, please. So I mentioned, our current approach to road safety is not working. It is reactive. The system is set up today such that we wait for a fatality to occur, and then we can go and make improvements and do the analysis and figure out, okay, how do we actually make an improvement for safety on that road? Now, I'm not saying this because I'm not trying to be flip about all the agencies all around this country that are doing a lot of great work on safety. But I am saying that that's really sort of the rubric that we've followed for a really long time. And the reality is we can take a new approach, a proactive approach to safety. And technology enables us to do that. We have the tools available today, and Jamie mentioned some of them, and I'll talk a little bit about it, to actually stop crashes before they even happen. So if we flip our mindset from how do we mitigate when a crash actually happens, right? How do we actually mitigate the effects, to how do we stop that crash from happening in the first place? We can make meaningful change, and we can save thousands and thousands of lives. The transportation community is aligned around what they call the safe system approach. Many of you in this room have probably heard of it. You might know it. And it really has a premise that no one should be killed or seriously injured on our roadways, that humans make mistakes, and that we need redundancy to keep people safe. And ITS America, as well as other transportation organizations, we support that approach. But key to that approach is this concept of redundancy, and that's where technology comes into play. The chair of the NTSB actually said this, and I like to borrow it because I think it's really impactful, but technology should play a starring role in every element of the safe system approach. Safer people, safer roads, safer vehicles, safer speeds, and safer post-crash care. And if we do that, technology can provide that redundancy layer that will actually keep us safe and start to eliminate fatalities. Next slide, please. So here is a success story I want to talk about briefly. So I'll talk a little bit more about vehicle-to-everything technologies, but as a kind of brief overview, vehicle-to-everything technologies enable vehicles and infrastructure and other road users to exchange safety message wirelessly and very quickly. So if you want to think about it in easier terms, it's sort of the digital equivalent of a cyclist saying on your left before you can see them. And one of the hallmarks of VDEX technologies is that it actually can see beyond the line of sight because it's radio-based communication. So what does that mean? That means that you can have the newest vehicle out there today with all the sensors and technology, which is fantastic, but that vehicle can still only see what its sensor sees. And vehicle-to-everything communications is wireless technology that provides that situational awareness to all road users, if they are outfitted with the technology, that allows them to be seen even before eyes or a sensor can see them. So it's really, really critical to safety. And in fact, NHTSA has done research for years showing that if deployed at scale, this technology could reduce up to 80% of unimpaired crashes. So that's significant. Okay, but back to the use case. So everyone here knows that millions and millions of children ride school buses every day in the US. 26 million children, to be exact. The most dangerous time for students is getting on or off the bus. Studies have found that drivers illegally pass school buses 17 billion times in the US. And in 2018, 6 students were killed by illegally passing drivers over a 6-day period in October. This is a known problem. It's a known challenge. So in Georgia, by deploying VDEX technology on school buses, they also did a pilot with Audi vehicles where they were able to deploy the technology in the vehicle. The bus, when the bus stop arm is released, it's sending a wireless signal to the cars so that they understand the school bus is stopping, they have to stop, and it actually, reduced increased safety for the students. So it alerts the driver of a message that the school bus is approaching and about to stop. In addition, the school bus driver received an alert of the oncoming vehicles during their stop, and it would receive a warning if the vehicle was approaching too quickly, so that the driver could then maybe not open the door, right, and not let the children out. Again, giving critical safety information at a critical time to make better decisions for safety. But the other thing was, so the city gave the school buses priority at the traffic lights. And so what they found, because this technology delivers many more benefits than just safety, even though safety is the primary benefit, they found a 13% decrease in travel times, an 18% increase in average speeds, a 40% decrease in number of signalized stops, a 40% decrease in fuel consumption. And then what's really interesting to me is there was another statistic that's not transportation related. So these children got to school on time. In fact, they got there early. So everyone was able to participate in the free breakfast program that the school district offered, right? And the bus drivers were happier and less stressed, because think about it, when you're driving a bus, when does the nonsense happen? Well, kids get up and start doing stuff when you're stopped. But if you're not stopped, the kids were behaved, they were sitting. So the bus drivers were happy and less stressed. The kids got to school on time and were able to participate in breakfast. So we have all the transportation outcomes, but if you think about it, right, these are much bigger societal outcomes that we can impact if we actually just start to think about how all of these systems really fit together. How do we enable this? Next slide, please. So innovation. I just pulled a quote that I thought was instructive for this talk. So innovation is taking two things that exist and putting them together in a new way. So one of the things that we talk about a lot is in this new era of infrastructure, we must link our physical transportation system with a digital layer that becomes the operating system for future mobility. Now, we call this digital infrastructure, and you'll hear me talk about this later. But why does this matter? Well, it's this digital layer that allows us to gather, transmit, store, analyze, and share information in real time, and to use that information to increase safety, reduce congestion, reduce emissions, and enhance mobility for every transportation user. It allows us to do more with what we have. I saw the projections at the beginning about the growth of Broward County. You know, many counties and cities in the United States are facing the similar challenges, and the reality is we need to do more with the assets we have. And technology allows us to do that. We may not be able to expand the roads, but we sure can operate them more efficiently. But in order to do that, we need the data, which means we have to enable this digital layer of intelligence to help us manage the physical world more dynamically and smarter. Next slide, please. So technology can recognize and predict dangerous conditions that were previously unidentified. You know, a lot of agencies have started to realize that by layering AI-based solutions on top of existing traffic sensors or cameras, they're actually finding things that are happening on the roadways that they had no idea were happening before. Wrong way driving, pedestrians crossing at dangerous times. And sometimes, you know, the intervention here is quite simple. In one city, the intervention to this pedestrian crossing was they just needed to move the bus stop. It was the location of the bus stop where people didn't want to walk to the crosswalk to cross. You know, in other things that you could be a physical intervention in the physical world, right? A redesign of a street or an intersection, or there might be a technology solution. So technology doesn't always have to be the solution, but technology gives us that intelligence to help make better decisions about what solutions actually needed in that given scenario. Dynamic infrastructure is possible. Changing speed limits in the event of congestion and adverse weather, or extending traffic signals when pedestrians are in a crosswalk. This is all happening today. A connected transportation system is possible, allowing road users and infrastructure to communicate safety-critical real-time information. Jamie mentioned the 3 VDEX Accelerator grants. I'll talk a little bit more about those. ITS America is thrilled to be a partner on all of those. All of those are our members. All of those, the entities that receive the grants are members of ours, and we're partnered on those opportunities, and we're really excited. A smarter transportation system is possible, alerting agencies to maintenance needs before a tragedy occurs, identifying areas of critical need and better serving all users. When you think about, we're going to talk about AI, but when you think about AI, you know, I think one of the most impactful use cases of AI is how agencies can use it to monitor their infrastructure. And they can know before a bridge needs to be replaced or before something tragic happens to the infrastructure now by layering AI tools on top of the existing sensors and cameras. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk a little bit about VDEX. We talked a little bit about what this technology is. So when you think about transportation, there's a lot that we can do in the physical world. And ITS America supports all of the physical improvements that all of our public agencies have made and continue to make. We should be designing complete streets for all road users, right? We should be incorporating roundabouts where we can. We should be making all of those critical design changes in our physical infrastructure. However, you also heard Jamie. It takes 15 to 20 years. It's a very long process, and we would argue, based on research, that it is not enough to get us to zero. To get us to 0 deaths, we have to deploy technology, and technology has to be an integrated element of how we look at safety. You can deploy technology in a much quicker fashion. You can reap the benefits. You often get better return on your investment when you invest in technology. And again, vehicle-to-everything technologies is the most promising safety technology. It's going to take a while for us to get there as a nation. It's not going to be a quick fix, right? It's going to take a while. But the thing about VDEX technologies that is really exciting is you think of it like a platform. Once you deploy it in the infrastructure side and in the vehicle side, it's a platform and you can add applications. You can detect wrong way driving. In rural areas on highways, you can give curb speed warnings to motorists. You can give weather warnings when weather's occurring. You can give a warning of a crash up ahead. You know, all the pileups you see on the interstates, sometimes obviously with poor weather, All of those things can be addressed with VDEX communications, in addition to safety critical, intersection safety, collision avoidance, which is why it was originally, the technology was originally created, was for collision avoidance. That obviously is a huge use case for that. But there are so many different applications of VDEX technologies. I talked about school buses. I'm going to talk in a second about emergency vehicles. So really and truly, every community member, every elected official, every transportation leader should see a way to see themselves benefiting from VDEX technologies. So the US DOT released a national deployment plan that we helped very much with and we're very pleased with on VDEX technologies. And what this plan does is it sets a national vision for a future connected, interoperable transportation system, and then it sets a roadmap for agencies and industry to actually get there. And so it has short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals. And for example, in the next by 2026, the plan calls for VDEX to be deployed on 20% of the national highway system. And that increases over about a 10 to 15-year period, because we know it'll take time. And it calls for VDEX to be deployed in passenger fleets, but that takes a while. The automotive cycle is longer, so we're talking maybe 4 years from now. But it could be deployed on government fleets, on school bus fleets, on emergency fleets. Like you think about trucking fleets. So you think about the fleet angle, and you could actually start to get some gains there in the much shorter term. And again, this is very important because this is one of the fastest ways that we're going to actually reduce the roadway deaths in our nation. So ITS America, we support our members in many different ways. Of course, we work very closely with the US DOT. We do a lot of advocacy on the national level. And then we create a lot of resources for our members to help understand how do I incorporate this technology into my system? How does it work? Who are the vendors? What do I need to know? That kind of stuff. We're now looking at creating resources that might be directed more toward explaining it to non-technical audiences, explaining it to policymakers, right? Why does VDEX matter to our community? What benefits can it bring? So that's some of the work that we're doing on the VDEX front. I'm going to talk about this one. So, next slide. So in DC, the EMS agency in DC decided to equip 20% of their fleet with digital alerting, which is a form of VDEX. So over the course of the year, typically, the fire and EMS department get about 444,000 EMS, they get enough calls to deploy 444,000 EMS vehicles. So by equipping their vehicles with this digital alerting, they're able to notify passing motorists through Waze and other navigation apps, and they're integrated with certain vehicles. So right now, Stellantis, but others are coming. So drivers who are using those navigation apps or who have a certain type of vehicle will get an alert, emergency vehicle approaching. Comes on your dash. It's non-intrusive, but it's good information. And they also are able to equip other emergency vehicles, because actually the largest hazard for firefighters and EMS workers is struck by incidents when they're responding, right? And so it's a big challenge, it's a big problem. And so what they found was that within a minute of alerting drivers reduced their speed by an average of within a second of receiving the alert, not a minute, a second. They reduced their speed by 25%. And it did significantly reduce crashes. So after this pilot, where only a portion of the fleet was actually outfitted, now DC requires all of their EMS vehicles to be equipped with this technology. Next slide, please. Digital infrastructure, I talked a little bit about this. So if you think about our transportation system, right, it's no longer just concrete, asphalt, and steel. Today, our transportation system includes sensors, software, data, and algorithms. And this is how we harness all this information that's coming from smartphones, from vehicles, from sensors, from all of these different connected devices that are spewing data, right? That we can collect that data and turn it into information. But here's the challenge. we don't want 50 different systems in 50 different states, right? We need this to be a national vision that is interoperable. So we really, from our perspective at ITS America, we're working with the federal government and our members to put together a national vision for what could this look like, and how can we all be kind of rowing our oars in the same direction, right, towards developing this future digital infrastructure for transportation. So we're working on various different policy objectives with that, and again, deploy our resources, helping our members understand, how do I manage this transition from analog to digital? How do I start to integrate different digital systems that I already have that don't interoperate? And then as I'm planning for the future, what do I need to be thinking about? What do I need to invest in today to make sure that I'm digitally enabled for the future? Next slide, please. So an example of why does this matter? So in Southern Nevada, the Highway Patrol, the Regional Transportation Commission, which manages the traffic, and then there were like 3 different disparate systems that were not connected. So they were able to all connect their data and their systems through one portal. And by doing that, so that's an example of this digital infrastructure. But they then layered on an AI-based tool. And what they were able to do was, by integrating their data systems and their centers and their traffic management system, they were able to identify incidents up to 12 minutes faster than traditional methods. So the AI solution is identifying an incident on an arterial or a freeway 12 minutes faster. So what that means is they're able to dispense emergency vehicles faster. So people are getting better post-crash care. They're also able to clear the incidents much faster, so there's less secondary congestion and crashes. They found an 18% reduction in crash rates, and for the agency, it gave them a 43% reduction in spending, because they're having to manage fewer incidents on the roadway, right? So by understanding when the incidents are occurring, sending out the emergency responders faster, reducing overall crashes, they're able to not only provide better service to their community members, better emergency care, but also reduce their own spending. Next slide, please. So autonomous vehicles have great potential in many areas, including freight, including accessibility, and including overall mobility. There's autonomous shuttles deployed right here in our backyard in Florida, in Orlando, in Jacksonville, and they're revolutionizing mobility for communities. But nationally, we do have a bit of a communications challenge when it comes to this technology. There is definitely a misunderstanding between what we call driver assist technologies and automated driving systems, right? And these are automated driving systems. And the capabilities of these technologies are different. And so we need to do a better job as a whole industry in explaining the differences to people, to the media, and to policymakers, so that they truly understand what the technology can do and what it can't do. But there's huge opportunities if we can actually start to scale these technologies. So in 2021, there were close to 5,800 fatalities from large truck crashes in the US. Automated trucking can help alleviate distracted or drowsy driving. Automated trucking is being tested very significantly, particularly in Texas, but in other states too. And there's huge benefits there for both on the business side and on the consumer side for automated freight. Mobility for rural areas. 75% of the United States does not have access to transit. So automated shuttles are a really interesting potential solution for mobility for people in areas where you don't have a great transit system and you don't have that kind of access. So in Minnesota, they launched an automated shuttle program. It was mostly for elderly, low-income, and differently abled communities who do not have the same kind of access to transportation systems. And what they found was that they served about 5,500 riders, with 88% of the riders repeat riders. So they really liked the service. the average wait time was about 10 minutes, which in a rural area was actually an improvement, right, over any kind of transportation option that they had had before. About 10% of the rides were for people using wheelchairs, so they were addressing this issue of mobility. And it was so successful that the program was extended for 3 years through the Federal Highway Administration. So when we think about automated vehicles, it's important to think about the different form factors, right? The shuttles, passenger vehicles, and freight, because there are huge opportunities in each of those areas that we can harness. Next slide is AI. So very quickly, I do want to ask the question, raise your hand if you think, the question is AI friend or foe? So raise your hand if you think it's friend. Okay, now raise your hand if you think it's foe. Okay, so I think more friend than foe in this audience, but you know, the reality is that it's neither, right? It's a technology, and how it's used, it depends on its implementation. And so that's why, you know, we at ITS America, we realize, number one, AI has been used in transportation for quite some time, for decades actually. And it's actually providing benefits today that many people may not even be aware of, in traffic signal optimization, in dynamic routing, in many different forms that people don't really, maybe they take for granted or they don't even recognize is being powered by AI. And there are so many different applications that could be used. But it's important to make sure that we have safe and responsible deployment of AI. So we created policy principles for AI, which are centered on 3 thematic areas: trust and transparency, human-centric AI use, and then outcomes. So outcomes like safety and equity and sustainability and mobility. And so we encourage the use of AI based on those principles and in ways that are actually delivering benefits to your community. We also created a document called AI Decoded, which is on our website, and it's actually really quite good. It does talk about the different forms of AI and models and a little bit of the technical language for people to understand, but then it goes into a lot of use cases about how it's being used and how it could be used, and I think it's actually quite informative. So next slide here. So how is it being used? Well, it's actually being used in tons of different ways. It's being used right now in several cities to ensure that bus lanes are clear of illegally parked vehicles or other hazards in bus lanes. It's being used in Tennessee for a smart corridor. So, you know, basically I-24 in Tennessee had the 2nd highest fatality rate in the state. It was also getting increasingly congested because of population growth. So Tennessee DOT implemented an AI-based decision support system along that corridor, which helped to provide drivers real-time information and actively manage traffic. So some of the things they were doing were using variable speed limits and doing some diversion routing. Now the key was the AI system was tied in to the alternate routes. So the signal systems were tied in. So if they did divert traffic, it was coordinating with those alternate systems traffic signals. It has resulted in an 8.5% decline in crashes involving fatalities or injuries. I will also say that Virginia DOT, sort of in my neck of the woods, has also used variable speed limits on I-95, which is, you know, a hot mess for congestion and crashes. And they have done like a 6-month pilot. They found it reduced crashes by 22%. So I hope they expand that, because that is real-time information. So based on the real-time conditions of the roadway, whether it be congestion or weather or something, they can in real time dynamically alter the speed limit and provide that information to drivers. And that's really key. And it actually keeps traffic flowing at a more consistent pace. And then here in Florida, Osceola County is using an AI platform that I believe is one of our private sector member companies to diagnose and mitigate safety issues. So they're basically taking the video feeds and from the cameras that are already installed at the intersections and applying AI. And what they're finding is they can identify near misses. They can identify dangerous behaviors in pre-crash scenarios. So it's providing them that additional level of intelligence that they didn't have before. So then they can take that and say, okay, what do we need to do to actually improve safety at these intersections? You know, how do we address some of these near misses that we're seeing? And you know, the AI is interesting because it can detect patterns that humans can't, and it can also just process so much data, right? So there's a lot of data out there. We talked about there's tons of data, but we just humans do not have the capacity to process all that data, and we certainly don't have the capacity to process all that data, deliver insights, and make it actionable in a short time frame. But AI does, and that's, I think, where the power of AI is. So you have to understand how and why you want to deploy it and use it, but then if you can use it in ways that provides that information to your human workforce to make better decisions and provide better safety outcomes for people, that's something that you should be considering. Next slide, please. Climate resiliency. So we all know extreme weather is having a devastating impact on our infrastructure. Since January of 2022, the Federal Highway Administration has distributed over $1.3 billion in emergency relief to help states make repair because of climate-related disasters. These impacts to our infrastructure from the climate can be mitigated with the use of technology tools and solutions. Next slide, please. So we all know the stats on the greenhouse gas emissions from the transportation sector. Next slide. So Hawaii DOT. Hawaii DOT manages 2,500 miles of roadway, and 20% of Hawaii's roads face risks due to erosion, sea level rise, lava flows, and more. So Hawaii partnered with Google on their Climate Insights for Infrastructure platform. And essentially what it does is it's a platform that combines AI and machine learning with geospatial analysis and data sets to detect and analyze climate change. And what this has allowed the Hawaii DOT to do is the tool actually gives them visualizations so they can better understand where am I putting my dollars to invest? Am I going to invest in this roadway? Because this roadway is going to be underwater in 3 years. They can also layer on equity and community impacts to this so they can determine what are the factors that they want to include in this analysis. And then it's giving them visual analysis of their roadways and helping them make smarter decisions for how to plan in the future. And then if a certain roadway is going to be significantly impacted in the future, then it allows them to be planning to plan for additional capacity in other areas, right? So it's actually allowing them to be more proactive when it comes to the impacts and effects of climate change. In Texas, real quickly, Texas Transportation Institute created a flood warning sensor system for Houston. So in the recent hurricane just in July, that system was in use, and it alerts motorists in real time to flooded roadways. Obviously, saves lives, keeps people safe by keeping them out of flooded roadways. So there are lots of examples of how technology can help. Next slide, please. So Jamie mentioned equity. A central goal of transportation is opportunity. So the ability to connect to all the elements of a thriving life, economic opportunity, social, educational, medical opportunity, and more. Providing equitable levels of access to affordable and reliable transportation options based on the needs of a population is critical. And equity has become a core goal of US DOT. Next slide, please. So when you think about a smarter, more efficient network transportation system offers people choices that work best for them and their lives, that's the greatest asset in our fight for equity in our communities. Next slide. So just as it's a mindset shift to think about investing in infrastructure that is digital and not physical, it's a mindset shift for transportation agencies sometimes to think about their role of building community and facilitating opportunity through investments of transportation. For a long time, a lot of transportation agencies really, thought of their role as they're either building roadways, they're managing roadways, right? But really thinking about it in this way of community-oriented transportation and creating that opportunity is something that has really shifted mindsets in the past few years. Putting people and outcomes at the center of our work and making investments today for the promise of tomorrow. Next slide, please. So another example in Montana, they have worked with a private company to create a software system that understands pedestrian accessibility and ADA compliance. And this is basically an example of digital twinning. But the reality is that a lot of agencies are finding that they don't actually have great real-time data on the condition of their network. And so this one is, again, really focused on pedestrian accessibility. And so using a digital twin, they were able to do the scan, finish the scan in 3 weeks, and they were able to get the final tool in just 3 months. That's a significant difference of time than it would have taken sort of by an older method. And what this is doing is having this digital twin that really shows the agency where they need to address sidewalks, where they need to do curb cuts, all of the things that would impact accessibility. It's giving the staff the ability to prioritize their budget dollars, their capital planning, and they're even able to develop dashboards and such for, to monitor performance in their system. Next slide. Okay, so policy. So all of this is only a reality if we actually have the policies and the regulations and the investments that allow for innovation to thrive. Next slide, please. So yesterday at an event I hosted, I actually showed a slide. I don't have it today, but it showed a rotary phone. It was a 1980s slide. It showed a rotary phone, which was how we used to communicate. It showed an old desktop computer, unnetworked, right, which was the beginnings of digital information. It had a floppy disk. That was how we shared information. And it had a AAA triptych, for those of you who remember that, right? That was how we navigated when we went outside our neighborhoods. It also had the old MTA subway token, right? That was how you accessed transit. And I showed it because that is a world that no longer exists, but yet all of our policies and funding mechanisms in transportation are really kind of still stuck in that era. So in an era today where we have tens of billions of connected devices in the marketplace, when digital mapping is old news, and when 90% of consumers have more computing power in the palm of their hand than NASA had to do the Apollo moon mission, it is time for transformational change. But in order for that, our policies need to be modernized. So it's time to modernize our policies to make sure that we can deliver on this. Next slide, please. So ITIS America is working on a new policy approach. I won't go into too many detail, but basically it is talking about a concept of technology is infrastructure. So when we define infrastructure, technology is infrastructure, just as a roadway is infrastructure, just as a bridge is infrastructure. It also talks about certain and sustained funding for technology so we can actually invest and make these deployments at scale. It's very hard to invest in technologies when you don't have certainty in your budgets if you're going to be able to do a multi-year project. And so we need certainty. And then finally, procurement modernization. All of our procurement systems are set up to purchase a one-time physical asset. Well, technology is different. Technology requires software licenses. It requires cybersecurity management. It requires data integrity updates. It requires cloud computing services. And our system is just like, what? It just does not work for that. And so we're working on procurement modernization that would actually recognize the unique aspects of technology and make it easier to procure these software-based solutions. Next slide, please. The workforce. So all of these changes are really impacting our transportation workforce. The story of a technology literate workforce is multi-layered, and we need to be addressing both K through 12, the existing workforce, and the future workforce. Next slide, please. So one of the things that ITS America is doing is we are thinking about how do we support our current transportation workforce, and we've created a new ITS Academy, which is going to have a course on transportation data, an introductory course. I would encourage those of you in the transportation field who want to learn more about data to check it out. It's going to launch later this year. And then finally, as I wrap up, I just want to have one slide about telling the story of opportunity. So we have this opportunity right now to shape the use of innovative technologies as a gateway to greater opportunity in our communities. Next slide, please. And what that really means is the ability to walk, roll, or ride safely in your own community, to actually deliver cleaner air for our own kids and the next generation, to actually connect people and neighborhoods through on-demand mobility, and to continue to bolster economic and global competitiveness. Next slide, please. This is the QR code for our use case library. I would encourage anyone who's interested to take a look at it. It's on our website. It has more examples than what I talked about today. And then finally, the last slide is just a QR code to our website. And I thank you. I think I've gone over time, so I don't know if we have time for any questions. So my apologies.
Laura, thank you very much. In fact, we do, I'm not sure
Okay.
if this is working or not. Doesn't sound like it. We do have time for a couple of questions. You raise your hand. I'll do my best. Late Bill Donahue. Thankfully, I use my voice for a living, so I don't really need the microphone. I can talk louder also. That's okay. Go ahead.
Laura, thank you so much. My question was on that information about when there's a signal that an emergency vehicle sends to the vehicles when it's within a certain distance. How does that work, and how do personal vehicles get that information in their car to get to that, receive that information from the EMS monitor?
Sure, that's a great question. So digital alerting, it's being delivered over the cellular network, so it's a wireless communication. The emergency vehicles that can actually make those alerts are outfitted with a device when the way it works is when the emergency vehicle flips on its sirens and its lights, it automatically sends a digital alert out to any receiving vehicle. Now, I will say there are NHTSA-related grants that every single state has access to that can fund the deployment of those devices in emergency vehicles. It's specific for, the fund is specific for emergency vehicles. And then on the passenger side, those alerts are integrated with the Waze app, a couple other navigation apps. The Stellantis vehicles, they're actually about to be integrated with 2 other automaker vehicles, but those announcements are coming in the next couple of weeks. But it's really helpful for folks who are using the different Waze and navigation apps, and also for the emergency vehicles who are also outfitted, because even the responder to responder alert, the studies have found that actually is helping to reduce crashes and improve safety.
This procurement conundrum, because government is willing to accelerate procurement. I'm sure the states would love to hear what they can do to help along.
Yeah, so one of the things that we would really love to see every state do is to support outcomes-based procurement, because that really changes the model. Typically right now, state has to know what solution they want and then put out an RFI for that. And the reality is with technology, a lot of times they don't know what solution they want. They know what problem they need to solve, but they don't know what solution. And so the more that we can lean on outcomes-based procurement, where you can say, this is the outcome that I want, right? This is the problem I'm trying to solve, and this is the outcome that I want. That helps, because then you can get different proposals, right, for different solutions that you may never have even know existed or could solve your problem. So that's one way. And then the second way is, I think, education, honestly, to their procurement officers about the difference when you're procuring software-based solutions, and how it really is a unique asset and very different from a one-time capital purchase. I think that education is really key, because a lot of times we find that some of the barriers are just in internal staff who don't really understand the difference.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Laura, thank you very much for giving us quite the tour there, and lots to think about here as we think about innovating community and mobility here in Broward County. One of the many things that struck me about Laura's presentation was that figure of 2.7 million injuries. And I can imagine that many of us probably can think of folks we know or ourselves who are part of that statistic of 2.7 million people being injured due to roadway crashes, either in a vehicle or as a pedestrian or as a bicyclist. The last part of our program is our panel discussion, moderated by Gail Bulfin, Senior Vice President of the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance. They are down here on stage below our screen. This panel is going to focus on the realistic application of electric vehicle technology, signal technology, simulation modeling platforms, all in advance to propel Broward's transportation system into the 21st century, and the partnerships, importantly, that are needed to make all of this a reality. Gail, take it away. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Tom. As Tom said, I'm Gail Wolf, and I'm with the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance, which is Broward County's public-private partner. And our job, among others, is to market Broward County as a business destination around the world, to manage projects into the county, and to keep those in targeted industries here. We engage our members by floating issues and getting them involved in those things that matter to Broward County. Transportation is certainly one of the key ones that we talk a lot about. And between Monica Sapero and Corey and Joe and all our county commissioners, we feel like we're in a really good spot to be able to sell Broward County. So I'm thrilled to be able to moderate this panel here today. I'm going to introduce our panelists. To my left is our Vice Mayor, Beam Fur. Beam is someone who's truly committed to our community. He's been a teacher, he was born here, and first started serving government around 2000, became a Broward County Commissioner in 2014, became mayor 2018, and is now Vice Mayor, so you're slated to become mayor again, I think, very soon. Beam is not afraid of focusing on really tough issues in the county, and he is very solutions-based. He is very much looking to engage all parts of our community in coming up with these solutions. So we're thrilled to have him here, Vice Mayor Beam Fur. Sitting next to Beam is Tamarack Mayor Michelle Gomez. Michelle, too, is someone who believes in partnerships to her very soul. In Tamarack has a community of about 72,000 plus, with several corporate headquarters there, including the headquarters for City Furniture. It's a life science and bio hub for us here in Broward County. Michelle has been involved after law school in government locally, and then served in Tamarack in 2018 as their mayor, a position she currently serves in. She's on many committees in Broward County, both in planning and affordable housing, but mostly I'm impressed with your involvement with the League of Cities, both locally, statewide, and nationally, and the MPO. So please welcome Mayor Michelle Gomez. And finally, we have Corey Cuff Lonergan, my friend at the end. She is the right person for any big job in Broward County, let me tell you. She's the CEO, GM of Broward County Transit. She has served 3 Fortune 500 companies, including as a senior chief engineer for capital projects for CSX. She's worked within the systems of Broward Metro and Philadelphia SEPTA. She has a role of 1,300 employees in Broward County, countless numbers of transit, paratransit, rail, bus, it goes on and on and on. She is someone who is now looking at 200 miles of some additional service in Broward County as part of Primo, and she's probably the smartest person I know as well as the nicest, so thank you so much, Corey. Okay, so let's get started locally here. We heard some great information from around the country, but now, you know, the rubber meets the road here in Broward County. So, Vice Mayor Fur, partnerships are a big part of us in Broward. Our 31 municipalities in our county work hand in hand together. Can you talk to us a little bit about the role of partnerships in delivering transportation solutions?
Sure. Thank you, Gail, for the invitation. And one thing, Joe Cox, for allowing us to have this here. I think it's a great venue for it, even though it's a tough one to look straight up if you're in the front seat. The partnerships, first, I think we need to start off with our main partner are the residents of this county. And when they passed the surtax in 2018, that allowed Broward County to have, and I think Laura had spoke to the need for long-term funding. that gave us that long-term funding for the next 30 years. At the time when it passed, it was the largest funding of anywhere in the United States on that kind of a referendum. So it has given us a chance to, put forth a master plan. And I remember, and I think when Laura was talking about the need to tell a story, we were telling the story of what this would bring to Broward County. And we were talking about what it would mean to be able to put fiber optics throughout all the arterial roads in Broward County. What would that bring to us? It would bring us those kind of cameras, communications, but it also brought lots of other things, the communications between cities, EMS, ground sensing, water device, all of those kind of things that we never would have even imagined having. So those kind of partnerships have been fantastic. Now we're saying, I'm also chair on CEFTEC, which has all three counties, Palm Beach, Miami-Dade, and Broward. And because we're able to have that funding, we're able to say, you know what, we want to fund a commuter rail. We would never have been able to do that in a million years without the surtax. But now we have been able to join forces with Miami-Dade, Palm Beach, and say, we want a train going all the way, up and down the coast. So we're being able to bring things that we weren't able to before. The interoperability between the counties, the buses that go from here to Miami-Dade, they don't just stay in Broward. We've got express buses going back and forth, but they needed to be able to be on the same, for those who have taken buses, when you get a transfer ticket, they weren't talking to each other. And now, Corey, thank you very much. I think in November, it actually goes into effect that all three bus systems will be working together. That's incredible partnerships because it means we're talking to each other in numerous ways. And then I know we are now talking about trying to do rail in between, not just commuter rail, but rail. And for those who don't know, I think Miami-Dade just passed a 30-year plan to bring their trash from Miami-Dade through Broward County up to Palm Beach, up to Okeechobee. And we're looking at maybe we have a rail out on US 27 that allows for those kind of possibilities. That requires partnerships, huge amount of partnerships between the private industry, between the county organizations, state, federal. So those, it makes a huge difference. But we're in a position right now that we were not in 6 years ago. And so I think we can be pretty proud of our county right now.
100%, yes, thank you. Mayor Gomez, in your community, you've got a younger community growing, but you also have seniors. You've got a real mix, a microcosm of Broward County and Tamarack. Tell us a little bit about how you explain to your constituents the possibilities of transportation and what it could mean for them.
Thank you, and as Vice Mayor said, thank you all for being here and everybody who put this together, and including myself and a great team. So I do look around going, oh my, why am I here? But anyway, so in order to get to people we go from 0 to 107, we're almost close to 108 in our city, and we are trending to 48 years old for the past 20 years. So we have an older network, but we are also more west, and we have roads that people automatically perceive as being more crowded, more dangerous, and what's going on. So in order to be able to tell the story from my residents' perspective and get it back to everybody who is more technical, like we couldn't tell them Fonzie, because I will tell you, it's be like, hey, that would be, that would be all they understood. We've got to be able to explain it in a way that makes them know what you mean. So when I had to go to a meeting, I didn't have to, I just enjoyed going to a meeting the other night with my residents, and they're concerned because commercial boulevard, accidents here, accidents there. They see an accident, they automatically perceive death. It's not always death, it's just something that has happened, unfortunately. The way our roads were created all those years ago in older planning, it doesn't fit today's needs. And with today's technology and ways and all those other wonderful things, excuse me if I'm not supposed to say any specific technology, They put people through the communities now. So there's speeding and there's concerns and there's rules that are older of how the county counts cars, and they don't understand why we can't fix them. But through the conversation that we're having, we were able to have an FDOT study, which I appreciate. Thank you, everybody who participated in that, to show the safety concerns along Commercial Boulevard from University to 441. And due to that study, we're now going to have a fix on Northwest 70th Street and Commercial. So I'm grateful for that. Coming through to public-private partnerships, through a redevelopment of the Woodlands and Commercial Boulevard, we're going to fix that intersection and Northwest 64th intersection. So to show my residents, it's all about showing the residents how it'll affect them. Then it's explaining to them that we are that really big airline. We don't turn around too quickly. It's going to take time. I was sharing how we have improvements coming to the turnpike, but that was about 15 years ago it started. Funding is not fully there, but it's getting there. It'll be the next 5 years, but to them it sounds like another eternity. So what I'm hoping with all of this conversation is to be able to bring back to the residents how we operate. So it's about education. How do we communicate to our residents now? And we're more connected via email and social media, having people come to meetings and use that communication on a level that they will understand. It takes time, because then it also comes down to who's funding this. So all these studies are really good, because while we learn more about what's going on our roadways and the new technology that'll be on the roads to signal, and if the signals are working and getting people moving faster and carefully and safely, we can then hopefully get to the pocketbooks, but of FDOT, even US Transit, the county, and all that, and say, fend it, right? Send us money sooner than later, because one of the things about we're learning things through AI and through all the technology more quickly, but are we raising the money just as quickly? So I'm very excited for all that we're doing and all that we're learning and all that where we will go and how to express it to our residents. That too will take dollars, because you have to educate them. But it all is that story, but also when we get them excited through the story, we can't have a cliffhanger and say, well, it's coming, but that project's not funded till 2035. Because then they go, what's the purpose? And then they get scared. So we've got to figure out a better way to tell the story, to alleviate the fears and help them have buy-in and know progress is coming.
Thank you, Mayor. So Corey, we have probably one of the most technologically sophisticated communities in Broward County. You're managing that, but you're also looking to the future of technology. Can you share a little bit about what you think about in terms of the future of technology and transportation?
Thank you, Gail, and good morning, everybody. Just so glad to be here today and to be on the panel with such wonderful partners. I just want to thank the MPO for hosting this event and encouraging the conversation around what 2050 and beyond looks like. I think it's really important in a community that we're always thinking ahead and planning for the future and intentionally being prepared to address it. So when we think about technology, and I really enjoyed Lauren's comments earlier today about what ITS America is doing from a innovative perspective on some of the thoughts around data, technology, and innovation. And so one of the things that we're doing at Broward County Transit as we answer the mail for our Primo program, which, as discussed earlier, is adding 200 miles of new transit service to our mobility mix here in Broward County. But one of the very important things that we need to think about from a technology perspective, and as we prepare for the future, is how can we truly innovate and change the way we currently do business? And so that's one of the things that we've been really pondering and thinking on. And so one of the great things that recently just happened for us is that we had a surprise gift because of the population growth in Florida of roughly $8 million that we can use to support our service here. And so what we've chosen to do with that investment is to use it to innovate our system. And when I say that, I mean in terms of our workforce, our customers, and our vehicles, our equipment. And what we're doing is we're creating a center of excellence and innovation where we can train the workforce of the future so that we can get ready for Primo and the assets that are going to come online, which are, you know, commuter rail, light rail, bus rapid transit, and high frequency buses, but also for us to engage in a very different concept around the customer experience. So a couple things I just want to share with everyone here is that, you know, when you look at the spectrum of what we deliver as a transit agency, we first have to look at our customers. And from a technology experience, what if you got on a bus, but you didn't know you were on a bus? You got on, and somehow that bus turned into a very relaxing atmosphere, almost like a rainforest. Technology can do that. We can literally have that experience. Not today. It's not exactly available today, but when you look at 2050, that is something that's a possibility for us. The other possibility, which is more tangible, is leveraging AI and virtual reality to train our workforce. So as we think to the future of bringing these new assets online, the way we train our workforce has to shift as well. And so this investment in our Center of Excellence will allow us to create virtual reality or virtual augmentation to train our workforce. What that looks like is amazing. Right now, what happens with a bus operator when they're training, they literally, when it comes to customer service training, they see an image on a screen, they get a chance to watch actors in a situation, you know, they observe it. But through virtual reality, we can put them in a three-dimensional environment where that customer interaction is real, it's live, and all the other distractions around them, the road conditions, the movement of the vehicle, et cetera, can be felt real time. That is a game changer when it comes to training. And the other part of that is that we have the capability right now to monitor how our bus operators are performing on the road. There's a lot of data that we're able to collect. But what if we were able to use that data through an AI to, when we recertify our operators, all of their driving history is dumped into one location. That AI evaluates that driving history. And then when they go to our Center of Excellence, they're trained based on, or retrained, based on some of the data from their driving history. That is what happens at our Center of Excellence. So that, again, is yet another game changer. And the last place I want to talk about innovation, I love the idea of talking about data, because data, you know, sometimes we forget that data is an asset. It is something that informs decisions, and it can help us do better. We have customer service staff that interact with our public. And those people also can be trained through this virtual reality. When it comes to equipment, though, this is where the rubber truly meets the road. As we talk about new vehicles and what we'll be bringing online, there is an opportunity for us through artificial intelligence, good data management, and the integration of technology for us to take a bus or a vehicle, let me just use the term vehicle, that is out and about on the road. So we have 3 work streams in our maintenance facilities. We have the inspection before something goes out on the road. We have corrective maintenance when something breaks, and then we have preventative maintenance. What if that vehicle went out on the road, had an issue, before it got back to be repaired, the kit that's needed to make the repair was sitting there waiting for them? What if that vehicle could self-diagnose itself and fix itself? This is the future I see. It's real, and it's going to happen, and it may happen before 2050, because a lot of these tools are already in place. It's just a matter of us using the data, leveraging it to its full potential, and taking technology into consideration. Thank you.
I want to be on that bus.
Truly a magic bus. The MPO has done such a great job planning for the future, and they have several pillars that they want to make sure they address in all of their plans. Among them, safety, climate issues. Vice Mayor, can you talk to us a little bit about technology, transportation, and climate issues here in South Florida that you're dealing with?
Sure. I'm actually also chair of the Climate Change Task Force. And for those who don't know, this region was one of the first places that put together a compact with Palm Beach, Miami-Dade, Monroe, and us. And that has been kind of helped us put a blueprint together, but it's also brought together the best minds in the area, all the academic institutions that have helped us kind of prepare what's coming. And you know, looking into the future with sea level rise. And I think it's incumbent upon us as a region to recognize we can't be the cause of this. So it tells us we have to be the ones who try to make a big difference. And that means trying to have electric fleets, trying to do those kind of things that would make a difference. Next week, or 2 weeks from now, I think, all of the cities are going to be meeting at I forgot the place, Long Key. And we're going to be looking at the vulnerability assessment for Broward County. It has been a work in progress for 3 to 4 years. It will be looking at all of the vulnerabilities in this county and what kind of investment is needed. It's going to look at what roads need to be raised first and all those kind of things. So it's going to be an eye-opener, but because we have some of the best, we have an incredible staff and scientists that are looking at this and are making sure we're prepared. I think it's going to make a big difference. Having everybody on the same page, and I think what you're seeing right now is you're having all the cities have a place to put in all their information, all that data that Laura was talking about. There's places for everybody to input that. And so we look at, and that's kind of where AI helps, is that you're able to pull in all those things and look what issues. Knowing where it's sensitive to floods, knowing it before what saturation levels are in groundwater, all those kind of things beforehand. So we're getting ready for it. 2 weeks from now will be an interesting time for all the cities to hear this, and for all of our transportation networks, knowing which roads we raise and where we start building or lifting, knowing where, do you do a tunnel, do you do a bridge? Do I dare bring this up? I know Dean's over there. But all those kind of decisions are part of that, so I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you. And I think one of the things that Mayor Gomez, you mentioned, was that planning and transportation often takes 10, 15 years, long range. But there are these incremental victories that take place, and the need to share those and figure out a way of communicating with folks, just what you said, Vice Mayor. Safety is a big issue. You addressed that earlier. You've got senior residents, you've got families. Tell us a little bit about what you'd like to see in terms of innovation in transportation when it comes to safety.
Thank you. And it was mentioned a little bit in Laura's presentation, less reactive, more proactive. When you know the cars are coming and the people are coming, instead of us doing studies that say, oh, at peak hours, you're only really adding a few cars. The reality is, we're adding more than a few cars. Our community has changed more than just the cars. It's when are people going to work? We have various hours, various shifts, various things. So I'd like to see some of this data help us move transportation a little bit more fluidly. And I'm not sure if it's actually variable speed limits, because then how do you educate the public to remind them that Commercial Boulevard is dropping down, or the little arterials are dropping down, and some of those things. But that might take them a little while. But how do we get, when you see all the people coming out on the boulevard, or McNabb, or Pine Island, or Powerline, Nob Hill, all of the roads, what data can go back and help us help the county fix the timing, or whichever other partner we have? These are things, because I'd like to not have my residents say, how many more people have to die before you fix this? Why can't we have a stop sign here? Why can't we have a road curbing here? I love the idea of more of these traffic calming mechanisms coming into our city. And I've told my community, if you don't meet the standards on something, maybe we could figure out a way to have you put it in, and then if you don't like it, well, you take it back. But there's got to be something. It got to be a little bit more safety-minded, a little less dollar-minded, and a little bit more outside the box. And I'm really hoping the technology and all that data that we're receiving and going to grow upon will help us with that.
Well, 3 of the 4 of us come from the land of circles and roundabouts, so I love seeing more roundabouts in Broward County. So, Corey, you have to take a look at all of this from a county-wide perspective with attention to our 31 municipalities. Of all we've talked about here today, whether it's climate, transportation, technology, safety, what can you kind of wrap up for us as the county perspective on transportation?
Wow, that was it's a big task. Well, first of all, I have to say this because it's truly important that we recognize that we have a gift here in Broward County. We have leadership at the commission level that are open and supportive of transportation, and mass transportation in particular. And I think that the fact that our Primo program now, we've graduated from plan to program, was passed unanimously by our commission, and Vice Mayor Furr was instrumental in getting us on board, I know, as well as others, with the surtax. You can see where those investments are going and how we're going to transform mobility here in Broward County through that plan/program. And then we also have the wonderful leadership of Monica Shapiro, who's our county administrator, who's a visionary, who's helping us be successful in the delivery of all the things that we were just talking about earlier. And so I think the number one thing from a county perspective that would resonate anywhere with any city is that we have to put safety as a priority. That's gotta be the priority. And we have to leverage every piece of data, technology, whatever you have to ensure that people can move about this county as safely as possible. And I think that's, in my mind, the number one thing that we have an obligation to do, and it's clear through the commitments that have been made at the county level, the conversation that we're having today, that all of those things are in play. I just wanted to say one last thing, Gail, if I may, before I turn the mic back over to you. Vice Mayor Furr talked about the fact that we have the surtax money, and that money is basically seed money that will help us get additional money and funding from other resources. I'm just back from a conference that was hosted by the Federal Transit Administration. And the acting administrator talked about the Bipartisan Infrastructure and Investment Jobs Act, which we talked about just a little bit ago, and the impact that that's having on the transit industry in general. One of the things that she shared was that so far in the last 3 years, that bill, or that act rather, has afforded us about 10,000 new transit projects that are working or in the development stage now. And of the dollars, and this is a game changer, we have invested $20 billion so far in the last 3 years, but there's an additional $5 billion, that of local funding that has come along to support $25 billion of investment in mass transit. Now, I've been in this industry a way long time, and I've never seen this level of investment. And I'm so proud to be part of the Broward County community because we have our ability to contribute in the way to improve our mobility, and we bring our surtax dollars to the table as we seek to competitively go after those very big numbers. And just to close out, our Primo program is roughly about $4.3 billion. So we're gonna need our fair share of those dollars here in Broward County. And I think collectively, us working together and looking toward the future for 2050 will be the key to us being successful in securing those funds. And thank you.
Sorry.
Well, we're at the end of our program, but let me just ask any last words from our panelists before we give it back to Tom. You know, I have to say, I hope you are as impressed with how dedicated and committed and smart these executives are who are leading Broward County and our municipalities. And I know that they think about every person and every community when they make their decisions. And I think we couldn't be in better hands as we look to the future for transportation in 2050. So with that, thank you, Tom. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Gail. Just a quick final thought from me and a quick short story here. You know, we talk about these big issues around public transit, and I think one of the takeaways today was obviously a North Star of safety. I will share with you the story of someone who used to ride their bike 14.7 miles each way to and from work to commute up until 15 months ago when a car happened to encounter this bicyclist on a sidewalk. I have a reminder of that encounter in my knee today. I am here to remind you, for those cyclists, always wear your helmet, and if you're driving, look out for those cyclists. So thank you for coming here. On behalf of Greg Stewart and the Broward MPO board and all of the organizers here at the Discovery Museum, thank you for coming. Drive safely, walk safely, ride safely, and please be sure to listen to WLRN. Thanks so much for your time today.